Part 3 of our notes today, y equals mx plus b, is slope-intercept form. Okay, it says it right there, slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Now here's the thing. It's a form, not a formula. Okay? It's not a formula, it's a form. Now you can use a form like a formula, but the key about a form in math is that the numbers in the form tell you something about that equation. So, for example, they gave us this little example one here, y equals 3x plus 8. The thing is, when it's in this form, where there's no number in front of the y, there's a number in front of the x, and whatever number's out here, this tells you some things. It means you can just look at this equation, and without doing any figuring at all, you can say the slope of this line is 3, and you can say it crosses the y-axis, that's what y-intercept means, at 8. Or you could put it this way, you could say it crosses at 0, 8. Okay? So it tells you something about this line, where it's at, and so if you wanted to graph it, it creates a shortcut for graphing those lines. Okay? Point slope form is similar. I don't use this one as often. Point slope form is y minus, right, in this case, y minus 5, negative 2, x minus 3. Notice here's what it looks like over here with the variables. It's telling you that there's a slope right here. This number that's right there is your slope. And so if you're looking at an equation and it's in this form, that number is going to be the slope. So the slope of this line is negative 2. It also tells you that whatever number is after the subtraction of the y and whatever number is after the subtraction behind this x, that is a point in the line. So notice they said a point 3.5. So just like the last one, it gives you a point and a slope to work with. So if you wanted to graph it and it was in this form, you could just start at that point and head in that direction, that negative 2 slope. So this says write an equation in point slope form of the line with this slope that contains this point. And so this is actually a fairly simple question that you can work out. You know that the form is y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. Okay? So the y stays the same, minus, and y1 would be this number right here. So we're going to put a 5 in its spot. There's an equal sign here. The next thing is m. M is this slope. So I'm going to put where this is, negative 3/4. I have parentheses, I have x, I've got minus, and then after this minus right here is where the x1, that's this negative 2. Now notice the minus is already in the form, so whatever number I put has to include its sign, negative 2. So the way that you'd write the finalized version of this, y minus 5 equals negative 3/4 x plus 2. A minus and negative is plus. And so that's how you write this equation. It tells you to graph it if you were graphing this line. And I'm going to just do a quick sketch of the graph. We know that it goes through this point, negative 2, 5. So 1, negative 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 2, 5. It goes through that point. Its slope is negative 3/4. Okay, so you're thinking about rise over run. A negative 3/4, you can either do this, negative 3/4, or you can do 3 over negative 4. Those are the same. So if I have a rise of negative 3, it means I'm going to go down 3 from this point. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to do a run of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 gives me a second point, and with 2 points I can graph the line. If I would have used this one, up 3, back 4, notice I would have gotten the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it doesn't matter which way you go with the slope. If it's a negative, it's going to be sloping down this direction. Okay. Last thing we have for this lesson is just identifying slopes. If two lines are parallel, notice this line right here, and notice that parallel symbol. This line and this line are parallel. Notice that their slopes are the same. So parallel lines have the same slope. The slope of one line is going to equal the slope of the second line. Perpendicular lines, so notice this line is perpendicular to both these actually, but let's just look at one of them. Perpendicular lines okay, If you take the slope of one of them and you multiply it by the slope of the other one, if they're perpendicular lines, it's going to equal -1. Some people call this a negative reciprocal. Basically, it's the reciprocal of the number and the sign is switched. So 4 becomes -1/4. Okay? Let's do an example here. Can't see my numbers. So we've got A, B, C, and D, and we want to see if A, B, and C, D, if they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither one of those. So first we'd find the slope of AB. Slope of AB. Okay, so we're going to do our y2, x, right? x1, y1, x2, y2. If you want to do that, x1, y1, x2, y2. So we're going to go y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. -5 minus 1 is -6. -1 minus 1 is -2. -6 over 2 is a positive 6 over 2. And that can be simplified down to 3 over 1, or just 3. The next point here, let's do this next one in red, CD. Its slope, so I got x1, y1, x2, y2, and so I'm going to go y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. 1 minus 2 is -1. 6 minus 3 is 3. So we get a -1/3. Notice if I did the reciprocal of 3, it would be 1/3, and the signs are different, so these are going to be perpendicular. If you're not for sure, you can multiply these two things together. 3 times a -1/3 would be -3 over 3, which is -1. And so there you have how you're going to find this. There are a few more examples that you can do with to see what happens if it was parallel. These slopes would have been the exact same number. If it's not like this and it's not exactly the same, then it's going to be neither.